everybody, happy Friday, and welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Sinead Jeffries, and this is The Daily Show, where we bring you the latest news from the world of movies, plus some insight into what it all means. Joining us this morning is your senior editor for AMC Movie News, Amy Rose Eisenbach.
Hey, my first AMC Movie Talk back since Sundance. I finally am starting to feel a little normal. That killed me, but it was a wonderful time, and you could definitely check AMC Independent. We did a review for all 20 films we saw, and they definitely got weirder as the week progressed because we were just losing our minds. So check it out for some fun and some laughs.
Welcome back. Also here is AMC production manager, Dennis Sen.
Hello, everyone. Me, Campia, and Schnepp last night watched a double feature of Seventh Son and Jupiter Ascending.
That's incredibly ambitious.
And AMC's lovely Miss Alicia Malone.
I don't envy you guys. Hope you got through it okay.
We had a blast.
Okay, good.
Nicholas Winding Refn's upcoming project, The Neon Demon, is a female-led horror film set to star Elle Fanning. Now, 3 new names were just added to the ensemble, including Keanu Reeves, Christina Hendricks, and Jenna Malone. Few details are known about the film to date, but Refn has described it as a horror film about vicious beauty, and it is said to potentially be about a group of supermodels going to extremes in their attempts to keep looking the way that they do. Amy Rose, what do you think about this casting news and the premise?
Whenever I hear Reeves, I always think in John Wick. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back, and he is really proving that to be true. I heard Knock Knock, which just premiered at Sundance, wasn't great, but John Wick was a gem, and I still really love him. The man doesn't age. I'm excited for this, but Refn is all I really need to know here. I mean, Drive, to me, is a cinematic masterpiece. I think it's perfection, every element about it. Only God Forgives, it was still incredibly stylish and beautiful and haunting, but I didn't love it as much as Drive. But still, he's a true auteur. I mean, he's just a really, a visionary filmmaker, and I love him. And Elle Fanning getting a role like this, and Refn in a horror film with this kind of premise. Again, we don't know too much. This is all speculation at this point, but I think Elle Fanning is going to be a great, centerfold for that. And just his style is already kind of like that because the intensity that builds and that pulse throughout. So I just think it's a perfect fit all around. Love Hendricks, love Malone, your sister from another mister.
Yeah. No, I was going to say Jenna Malone, my sister. I'm excited by this too. We were talking about this on AMC Indie Spotlight and how much we love Refn and Drive. The way he looked at LA, I thought that was really unique. And his movies are always quite brutal, so I'm glad that he's doing something that is a horror. Keanu Reeves, I loved John Wick, and I love him in that kind of role. Mm-hmm. And I love him when he has little dialogue to work with, but he can just kick butt. And that's what I'm hoping for this, because Refn, one thing he's known for is not having much dialogue at all. I'm looking forward to seeing Christina Hendricks back with Refn, and also 2 Australian actresses have been added to the cast. Abby Lee, who's going to make her big debut in Mad Max Fury Road. She's a model in Australia, and also Bella Heathcote, who's an Australian actress I think deserves more. She was in Dark Shadows. Not so good, but she is a great actress, so I'm looking forward to seeing those 2 step up into these roles. And also exciting for Drive fans, Cliff Martinez, we were talking about scores yesterday. I should have mentioned the Drive score. He's going to be back to score this one, so it's going to be great.
There's something about you.
The premise itself is not really that interesting to me, but you're right, Refn does do kind of that slow-paced tension thing really well, which I think will lend itself towards horror. I also like Keanu Reeves, that he's back and he's getting a lot of work now and people are talking about him. Christina Hendricks, I remember the first time I ever saw her was not in Mad Men, but she was in an episode of Firefly.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
And Jenna Malone's always good, not Sucker Punch withstanding, but that's not her fault. That's
she was still good in that bad film, and visually was gorgeous.
Yes. So, because of Refn, I am interested in seeing this. And Only God Forgives, that also was a movie that a lot of people hated. I liked it. I didn't love it, but I enjoyed it. And so it's not as good as Drive, like you said, but for me, I think this is a good fit for him.
And that was his passion project. Like, he wanted to make that so bad, and I just really admire a filmmaker that is just like, look, I don't care if you support it financially, like, I'm gonna do this film. And I feel like, again, with his sensibilities for a horror film, it's gonna be perfect, and we all know he's not afraid to go really gory and realistic and gruesome, so I'm excited. What's next?
Lionsgate has announced 2 new updates for its Hunger Games franchise. The first is a confirmation that the final chapter, The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2, will release in IMAX 3D on November 20th. All films prior to The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 have screened in this format. The studio also announced that The Hunger Games The Exhibition will open in Times Square in New York on July 1st through January 3rd, 2016. The exhibition will be a series of interactive elements, galleries, costumes, props, and more to connect guests to a one-of-a-kind experience. Dennis, what are your thoughts on this Hunger Games franchise news?
Well, in terms of the exhibition, I would like to go see. I love seeing those things, the props and the costumes and stuff like that. And being in LA, we're usually the people who get to see all that stuff, so I'm kind of jealous it's only in New York, and I'll be one of the people kind of complaining, why doesn't it come here? But as far as the movie, yeah, in IMAX they released, I think all of them in IMAX as well.
Except for Mockingjay, yeah.
Okay, and so I'm excited to see it in that format, because I mentioned yesterday I got to see the Game of Thrones at the AMC City Walk in IMAX, and it was fantastic seeing it on the big screen, and this is the type of movie that lends itself to it. I also heard that Deadline was reporting that the CEO of Lionsgate was interested in working on some prequels or sequels to Hunger Games, which...
Shocker!
Yes, when you have like the #1 movie of the year domestically for, I think, the 2 times running, you're going to try and find as many ways possible as milking that as much as
like Harry Potter.
Yes, exactly.
They're like, oh, this world is done. What else can we do with it? I mean, I'm not surprised at all with either of the, these tidbits. Like, usually when I hear 3D, I'm like, oh, great, gimmicky. But that's not the, strategy they took with Hunger Games. It actually just added depth and dimension to it. And with the IMAX element, I think it's beautiful. So I'm okay with that. Usually when I hear that, I'm like, great, you just want more of this, And then that interactive element, again, not a surprise. They're doing like the play. Do you remember that as well, too? And this, so it's just gonna be Hunger Games all the time. But if there is a franchise that lends itself to something like this, it's so intricate, all the props, and I can imagine what they would do with just the different cornucopias and just, I don't know, things like that. So I do think it could be fun, and it's only, I think, it was like $22. I'm glad they're not trying to charge like a crazy premium for it. So I'm not surprised, and I'm gonna call it right now. We're gonna extend it for 1 month only. I mean, you're gonna get lots of those, so Leash.
Yeah, I really want to see the exhibition because I agree. I love seeing props and the costumes close up. I think that's really cool. Apparently the only reason that Hunger Games Part 1 wasn't in, Mockingjay Part 1 wasn't in IMAX was because Interstellar opened 2 weeks before that, so it booked out all the IMAX cinemas. As for the 3D, apparently Francis Lawrence, we've got a helicopter coming to get us. Francis Lawrence said he saw the 3D conversion of Part 1 that they did for China, and he thought it was really great, really immersive. I can't imagine it because usually 3D works better when it's a lighter environment, and that movie was so dark, but he says he agrees. I like how it's really interesting to me how they change movies for different countries. And China, they allow 34 US films a year, and 14 of those must be in IMAX and 3D. So there's a lot of 3D conversion that goes on with these big films, but we'll see that with Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2.
Yeah, and if IMAX had to be selective, it's a no-brainer with Nolan and Interstellar. So, yeah, we'll see. Nothing surprising here. All right, guys, moving on to the buy or sell portion of our show. The lovely Sinead has a couple other items picked out going on in the world of movie news, and my wonderful panel and I are going to say if we buy or sell it. What's first?
The first image of Tom Hiddleston from Ben Wheatley's Highrise has been released. Adapted from J.G. Ballard's novel and set in 1975, Hiddleston plans anti-hero Dr. Robert Lang. The breakdown of class and social structure with a brand new high-tech London apartment building has Lang and its residents slowly giving into their more animalistic impulses. Luke Evans, Jeremy Irons, and Sienna Miller also star. Alicia, buy or sell the first image and description of Highrise?
I buy it, and you can't help but to look at Tom Hiddleston in that image and not think of Loki in his glass case of emotion. He looks very similar, very dark.
The horns!
But I love that. I love this cast, and I love the concept. I'm hoping it's one of these self-contained stories because I like when it's a story like this that has a few locations but examines big issues. Like Attack the Block did that really well with social structure. Also, I love Rear Window, obviously, and Rope and Lock and Buried when you have a small location and just and focus on the story. But that's just me guessing from the synopsis. The cast looks great. I mean, Sienna Miller, she's making some really great choices lately.
She's in everything right now.
I love everything she's doing. It's so good. Tom Hiddleston, we know he can play a great anti-hero. And always nice to see Jeremy Irons on screen.
Yeah, I'm thrilled about this, mostly because of Ben Wheatley. I mean, he's done a lot of things, but if you've not checked out the kill list yet, for my horror fans out there, it is so incredible and disturbing. And I saw it a couple years ago, and I was just like, whoa, it's an experience. And I think he'll bring, again, that to this. I mean, visually, they're just a beautiful first photo.
Yeah.
I love Hiddleston. I love that we're going to see him, Hank Williams, and then this move, the anti-hero. I just think, again, he can do anything after playing the best, most iconic role ever with Loki. So I'm really excited, and this cast is spectacular. I mean, Jeremy Irons alone, that voice, he's one of those. Spader and Irons, to me, have those voices that I'm just like, Scar. I'll always remember you as Scar. But yeah, I'm really excited about this. Luke Evans as well. I mean, Dracula didn't really take him where he wanted to go, but I still think he has talent. So overall, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I like Hiddleston, despite him looking like he's going into like 50 Shades of Grey right there. I'm actually gonna sell it. The cast is great, but I'm selling it because just reading based on the synopsis about how it's supposed to be this high-rise luxury building, and then the whole class structure stuff. I'm like, well, how much poorer are the people on the bottom floor of a luxury high-rise building? And they talked about the seedy underbelly. I'm like, it's a high-rise luxury building. It's not like all these like poor people that are selling drugs are gonna be on the first floor. So I don't know how they're gonna pull that off. Like with Snowpiercer, it transitioned well because it was a train. It was kind of set in the dystopian future.
Yeah.
I don't know about this.
It could work though when you bring that up. And I also just thought of the Continental in John Wick, how that contained environment was so much fun. I would like to see a whole film in the Continental.
Yeah.
So if they did something like this, it's 1975. This is a pretty well-known book. It could work, and the cast is good, and the director's good. So we'll see. But I get it. I get the apprehension for now. What's next?
On the heels of the new trailer, a new poster has been released for Furious 7, which pays tribute to the late Paul Walker. The words "One Last Ride" accompany the image of Walker with Vin Diesel standing across from him. The film will hit AMC theaters on April 3rd. Amy Rose, buy or sell the new Furious 7 poster?
It's an enthusiastic buy. I don't think this could be a better, more classy poster, and I like how Vin Diesel is kind of tipping down, kind of bowing down. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard seeing Paul Walker on. I mean, he was robbed of his life. He's so young, but, I'm really glad that they got the family in it and everything, and I just think this is really classy, black and white, simple and to the point, and One Last Ride, I mean, it kind of gives me chills. So I think it's pretty brilliant.
I'll buy it as well, though I will disagree with you. I don't think I need Vin Diesel in this. I think if it was just Paul Walker straight on and One Last Ride, I'd be okay with it. And we reviewed the trailer yesterday, and we all dug it. And yeah it's a nice line, and hopefully, it delivers.
One Last Ride until 8, 9, and 10.
Yeah, I know, but it's a buy because it's kind of a sad poster, sad image. That bit in the trailer we talked about yesterday when he says "One Last Ride" to Paul. You really feel something.
Yeah.
And when you talk to this cast, they do see themselves as a family. So it is like they're losing a family member. Plus, I think there's a lot of fascination from audiences in how they're going to treat the whole Paul Walker's character leaving the series.
Yeah.
So I think there's a bit of a fascination with this poster, but it's classy. I like the black and white.
Yeah, and I like that it's them because of the brother aspect.
Yeah.
So
It's sad.
what's next?
So, sticking with the theme of new posters, the first glimpse of Sir Ian McKellan and Mr. Holmes has been released. Directed by Bill Condon and set in 1947, McKellan will play an aging Sherlock Holmes who, while searching for a rare plant with powerful restorative qualities, has witnessed the devastation of nuclear warfare. He searches for answers before it's too late by reopening the very case that forced him into retirement. Dennis, buy or sell the first look of McKellan as Sherlock?
I buy it. Ian McKellan is great, and I actually really like the premise of this, aging Sherlock Holmes. Bill Condon, I never watched any of his Twilight movies. I thought Dreamgirls was okay. Didn't care for The Fifth Estate, but I have a feeling he's reteaming with him, Ian McKellan from Gods and Monsters, which I haven't seen, but I heard a lot of good things about, so I think that maybe that will lend itself to being, having that previous collaboration being a better film.
Is there a more dapper-looking fellow than Sir Ian McKellan? I just love this guy. And I mean, there's been so many different incarnations of Holmes, and I've never seen this on the big screen, the aging Holmes, and I love that. And I love the premise too. I think it sounds interesting, and it can be done. And he's starting to, age and kind of lose his memory and all this, but trying to piece together this big lost mystery. So I'm in, and I think this is the perfect first tease.
Yeah, I buy the word dapper is exactly the one that I would use. He looks so great, doesn't he? Like, very different Holmes to what we've seen, obviously, with Robert Downey Jr., but you can totally believe Ian McKellan as a really smart detective. And I love the fact that he's 75 and he's still a leading man. It's so cool. And he has one of the best voices ever.
Oh.
I can listen to his voice all day.
Me too. He's just so cool.
So cool.
And they're the best friends ever, and I love them.
Yeah.
Patrick Stewart, yeah.
I just want to hang out. All their little photo rivalries.
So
I mean, oh my God, they're so cute. Cute as a button. All right, guys, before we move on to Mailbag, we are going to take a couple of your Twitter questions. So go ahead and send them to @AMC Movie News on Twitter. And Miss Sinead might pick yours out. All right, what's the first Mailbag question?
Iman Rafferty wrote, "Greetings, ladies and fellas of AMC. My question is in relation to the recent discussion of Eddie Redmayne's Oscar chances with the release of Jupiter Ascending. Should one's performance in a film that has him nominated for an award really be hampered by a different film entirely? After all, didn't Sandra Bullock still win an Oscar for The Blind Side after winning a Razzie for All About Steve? Regards."
I think that is a great way of wording this question. So well played. Because we've definitely talked about this. I mean, it is no, I mean, look at that picture. It is no surprise that the production has pretty much, Focus has wanted to hide Eddie Redmayne's performance in this film because of his Oscar chances. I'm sure they probably even pleaded with WB, can you just push it back 1 month till after the Oscars? But I think you brought up a really good point with, the Razzies. I can separate performances. I can see why he wanted to be in this colorful, crazy, like, baddie role, But if you just separate that from Stephen Hawking and just the ability to connect with the audience when moving no part of your body really at the end there, I mean, it was breathtaking. It was mesmerizing. So I personally think it won't, but there might be some petty people in the Academy who, maybe the same ones that said, I didn't even see 12 years, but I voted for it. Maybe those will be the ones that are swayed and say, oh, he just did this. But I think that Stephen Hawking is such a treasure, and he's such just like, his contributions to, society are so great, and his performance was so powerful that I personally would hope they would separate it. And from all the awards we've seen, I would say he's still the front runner over Keaton. But if Keaton took it, I wouldn't be surprised either. So it's definitely still a two-horse race, I think. What do you think, Leash?
I don't think many of the Academy members will watch Jupiter Ascending. I don't think it's really their jam. But it is quite interesting how both Eddie Redmayne and Julianne Moore have films coming out right now. They're both Oscar nominated. And both of those films were ones that they did ages ago, years ago, and they've been delayed, and now finally coming out. It's funny timing. And then, of course, people always saw them both last night. And it's funny that people often bring up the Norbert curse when Eddie Murphy was nominated for Best Supporting Actor in Dreamgirls, and Norbert came out at the same time, and there were billboards all over LA of Eddie Murphy as Norbert, and the tagline was, "Have you ever made a big mistake?"
It's so smart.
And then people say that affected the Oscar, and then he lost the Oscar to Alan Arkin from Little Miss Sunshine, whether that's true or not. But the Academy, I mean, they often vote for people based on their body of work and not just one performance. We've seen that before. But Eddie was so good as Stephen Hawking, and he's not the star of Jupiter Ascending. I haven't seen it, so I don't know how much he's in, but I say it won't affect his chances.
I think it might, actually, especially more so than Julianne Moore, because Julianne Moore, she's the front runner for for Best Actress, and she doesn't really have that much competition. It's almost a lock, right?
It's a lock.
But you have Eddie Redmayne and Michael Keaton. They're kind of neck and neck because they've each kind of traded off award wins, and it's about the timing of this, because All About Steve, Sandra Bullock, that actually came out, I think, in September of the year that Blind Side came out, and then Blind Side came out in November, so it kind of erased all of that. It was a lesser-known film. Now you have Jupiter Ascending that's coming out right before the Oscars. I don't know exactly when the voting ends, so I have a feeling that it possibly could affect it.
I wonder. And you're saying about, the body of work, that's Keaton in a nutshell. I mean, he was great in Birdman, but he's a legacy player, as we see in sports, as we see in films. People like to honor that. It is funny that we have both posters for the two aforementioned films. And Julianne Moore, it's like people are like, Seven Sons been delayed. Like, it's not even part of the conversation. But I guess she has a lot more, of a discography than Redmayne does. So we will see what happens. But either way, I think people acknowledge that he was incredible as Hawking. So we'll see what happens. What's next?
Manu Shoker writes, "What's happening, AMC? My question is about film characters and their progression throughout a film that ultimately determines who they become. Which character development intrigues you more? When watching a movie, are you guys more interested in the hero turning villain, such as Anakin Skywalker, or a villain turning hero, like the Terminator? Thanks.
I love this question. It's so fun. I like both scenarios personally, but I think I'm a little more intrigued with the hero going villain. What changed them? What took the course? I mean, we saw that with Magneto a little bit. We saw that, as what you just mentioned, many other different things. I like both, but I personally think that's just more fun because you're good by nature, and then what turns you, nature versus nurture, like what is it? So I think that's where I would go with. Dennis?
I'd go with that as well, even though both are fascinating, but for different reasons. I think it may be because I'm a more cynical person. I feel like in real life, you see that happen more often. How often do you see like a person that's like a bad person all of a sudden turn good? Where you've seen plenty of people who are good that eventually go down a dark path. In terms of movies, Michael Corleone in Godfather turning from the protagonist to bad. The Anakin Skywalker one would have been great if Lucas didn't mess it up.
Yeah.
We all remember, what was the last one, Revenge of Sith? The Darth Vader scene is so terrible. No!
That was a good impersonation, though.
Well, I'm going to be different from you both, maybe because I'm an optimistic person.
I'm optimistic.
I love the villain turning into a hero. I love a redemption story, and I love when, as an audience member, you feel completely different about a character at the end to the start. And I think it's a harder premise to sell, so you've got to do it really well. Snape in Harry Potter, I mean, he's someone that at the start of the series you felt one way about him, at the end you felt something totally different.
Did you? I still thought he was creepy.
No! Loved him at the end. Come on. Love Snape. And then Lives of Others did that really well.
Yeah.
And Major Calloway in The Third Man. I love when someone who you think is going to be one way changes to a different way. And yeah, I like when someone ends up being good.
I'm optimistic too, Missy, but I don't know. I think it's just fun. Maybe I do like the dark side. What can I say? But yeah, I think that's a really great question. And you're right. It has to be believable because,
It's hard to pull off.
it's like, yeah, exactly. And that's what makes arcs in characters so fascinating. So thanks for your questions, gents. All right, Miss Janae, what's the first Twitter question?
At Van Nav asks, are made-for-TV movies eligible for the Oscars? If so, are there any notable wins or nominations?
I don't know off the top of my head, but
Yeah,
made
no.
for TV, does that mean on TV?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah.
No.
No. Golden Globes, yes.
Yes. Different. Keep going.
At Brody Koning says, I followed the Sundance news this year. Now I'm excited for these films. When does a Sundance film typically get distribution?
Excellent question, my friend. Thank you for following the updates. There's so many good ones, and we saw 20, and I'd say maybe 12 or 13 of them already got distribution. I know that Dope is coming out in June, which was one of the indie darlings of the fest. But yeah, most of them that got picked up, IFC picked up a lot of them, Open Road a couple of them. You'll see them in the next year or so. So just keep your eye out. Check IMDb because they're the hot property, so they'll definitely keep them posted. But yeah, they're not going to lose that momentum, so they're trying to lock a release date soon. Anything, Dad?
Yeah, probably, if it's not in the summer, then probably in the fall, where I think more people are looking for those type of movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends case-by-case basis. It depends on the distributor, when they want to push it. Sometimes they might want to push it for Oscars, so then they'll release it later in the year, or during the fall when the smaller movies can do better. And then sometimes movies come out, like The Voices is coming out now, and that was at Sundance last year.
Yeah.
So sometimes it takes a while to get there.
Or maybe depending on as well, like there's a couple horror films, they want to put that in October strategically. So yeah, they usually have a strategy behind it, but a lot of good ones, so stay tuned.
Chad Joyce tweets, speaking of Kill List and psych surreal horror, what are your thoughts on David Lynch and how he has impacted the industry?
Oh, I love David Lynch.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the greats. I mean, his style can be felt in so many filmmakers today as well. But I have nothing to say, but just every film is an experience of his. He completely holds you in there and doesn't drop you until the film is over. And he's introduced so many amazing characters. And just, yeah, you can always tell when a filmmaker of today has been influenced by Lynch. I know you're a huge fan.
Yeah, I love Blue Velvet. It's one of my favorite movies. And David Lynch was harder for me to get into than a lot of other filmmakers. I remember seeing Eraserhead just going, what did I see? Hold me. But then once you get more into his filmography and you understand his style, then he becomes a little bit more accessible. He's very surreal and just very unique. And as you said, a lot of people have been influenced by him. Even we were talking about the Ryan Gosling trailer for his movie Lost River, and you can see some Lynch aspects just in that trailer.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's hugely influential.
What I love about Lynch, though, he's very open to everything. Like when he talks about like digital versus film, and he talks about the different kind of like what people watching on their phones or their iPads. Like he's very open to that, which a lot of older filmmakers are not. They're very closed-minded when it comes to those things, and he's open to it all. So he's very experimental.
Yeah, that is something to say about it. A lot of them are stuck in their ways. No, I will only shoot on this or this. So I love that. Keep pushing the envelope, my friend. All right, let's take 3 more.
Juan Samariba asks, hey guys, do you think Star Wars would be a successful franchise if it were a brand new movie today?
Hell yes.
If the original trilogy, because not the prequels.
Trilogy.
No, yeah, the original trilogy. I mean, again, we always talk about this, and so many of you out there get upset because you did like the prequels, and I get it. If I was raised in, 10, 15 years younger than most of us are, that introduction of the prequels, maybe I could see something more special about it, because as a cinematic experience, it is grand and it is intricate and fascinating and it's colorful, but it just doesn't even hold a candle to the original. So I do think that we're really hungry for good sci-fi fantasy exploration type films, but they have to be done right. I mean, you look at John Carter, which trying to combine some of those elements, and personally I thought the film wasn't bad. A lot of people hated it though, so it really does, you have to have the right formula. But I want to be the optimist and say that despite I do love the dark side, that yes, if it was the original now with the technological effects of now, that it would still have the love.
Yeah, that's kind of the biggest complaint of people who love the prequels and may not like the original. I know that's hard to fathom, but it's like the visual side of it. They're like, oh, well, I actually have problems with the prequel visuals not because they're bad, but because they're all the same. If you watch, if you put on any of those movies at one time, I couldn't really tell you which one of the trilogy it is. You put on any of the original trilogy, I can tell you, oh, that's Return of the Jedi, that's Star Wars, that's Empire Strikes Back.
And they were so ahead of their time at the time. A lot of people are like, oh, it doesn't even hold up, but that's not what it's about. It's about so much more than that.
Yeah, and it changed the film industry at the time, but I think it would work today, even though I'm not the biggest Star Wars nerd around. The story is the reason why it would work today, because it's quite a simple story, good versus evil, and it just works. Characters were written well, great characters. If you could have that cast as well now, because Harrison Ford, I want to see Han Solo, Harrison Ford back on the screen. I think it definitely would work.
The characters and the chemistry.
Yeah, great chemistry.
Definitely.
All right, what's next?
Henry Mertens tweets, are there any movies that are under the radar you've been recommending everybody to see? The Babadook comes to my mind.
I love the Babadook.
Babadook is good.
Another one that I saw at AFI that I plugged on Indie was It Follows, staying within that realm. It's a low-budget horror, psychological horror. It brings STD to another level, sexually transmitted demon. You'll have to see it.
I had a dream about it last night, actually.
Last night?
Yeah,
I love that.
because I was talking about It Follows with some friends, and I was explaining the premise of it and how, you catch this demon when you have sex with someone, and then the demon just follows you, just walking in a straight line towards you, and it's such a creepy image
so scary.
that I had a dream about that last night, and it freaked me out. But as for underrated films in cinemas now, well, I mean, one that's on Netflix right now that we've been talking about is Frank.
Oh,
and
yes.
I think that one
That's a
is
great
one that a lot of people haven't seen. You might get put off by the quirky premise because it's Michael Fassbender and a giant plaster head, but it's about so much more than that. It's about celebrity versus art, and he's quite a heartbreaking character as well. So I recommend that one.
And he sings, and he's really good at it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the ones I've been talking about all kind of got more attention lately, which were, Birdman, Whiplash, and Nightcrawler. They're all movies that people really weren't paying attention to, and then they got all nominated for Oscars. So I'm trying to think of any other ones in the cinemas right now.
Like Still Alice and movies like that.
Cake is another good one. Jennifer Aniston, I mean, she completely breaks the mold of the Friends character. Everyone thinks that she kept playing. She did that a little with Good Girl, but this was the role of a lifetime for her. Another one that's on Netflix that's not as current, but it's not old, was The One I Love. I feel like a lot of people didn't see that one. The Duplass brothers, Mark Duplass is in it, Elizabeth Moss. It's so good. It's like a sci-fi rom-com of sorts. You should check it out. out.
really
It's really
inventive.
good, and yeah, I think it completely slid under the radar as well. Have you seen it?
No, but Skeleton Twins is one
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
a lot of people didn't see that I really liked.
Me too. Their
Kristen
chemistry,
Wiig, Bill
amazing.
Hader.
All right, what's next?
At Los in the Angeles asks, are the Wachowski siblings a one-hit wonder? Will they ever have another successful hit, or will The Matrix be the only one?
That's a hard question. I don't think they're one-hit wonders. I just don't think. I mean, because visually, even if people are pulling apart the plot of Jupiter Ascending, it's still fun. You know, it's still visually a treat for your eyes. But yeah, nobody has ever gravitated. The public is the nobody has gravitated towards really any of their films as much. So I don't know if one-hit wonder is the right, because the trilogy was really successful. So I already have 3 there, even though I still think the first was leagues above the other 2. But yeah, I don't know. I think they still have something to say as filmmakers, so I'm not ready to give up on them.
Having seen Jupiter Ascending, definitely there's issues with that movie. But if you take it from just a filmmaking standpoint, you can see that visually they still have it. And even the action is actually pretty entertaining. There's other issues with the film that probably will detract people from watching it. But so after having seen it, I'm like, well, they still have it.
Yeah.
They just need to focus it in the right area. And so I think they still have another hit in them, or maybe more.
The visual effects definitely, but it just seems like more and more it's looking like the Matrix trilogy was the exception and not the rule. They really need a hit next time.
They do.
I was having a debate with Christian. He thinks that they had more to do with V for Vendetta than just producing, so maybe they did, and I loved that movie.
Yeah.
Cloud Atlas, I didn't mind just because I loved the book, but I think I would have loved just seeing it on the screen no matter who was directing it, because that's such a complex book, and to see it up there was really cool. But yeah, it's just looking not so good for them. They really need to come out with a strong hit, with a good story.
Exactly.
As well as the visual effects.
I think that's where their weakness is, though, is
Yeah.
if they can get someone else to write the story
Yeah.
and them just to direct it.
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of there's a lot of weird things in Jupiter Ascending that could have been easily changed.
I heard that with V for Vendetta as well. We'll never really know. That's like one of my favorite films of all time, so it's incredible. But still, it's like they didn't direct the vehicle, so it's hard to really, pay attention to that. But I do believe in them still. But you're right. If this next one bombs, it's going to be really hard to recover from that. But I believe in you guys. Just go more simple is really where it comes. Good story. You can throw in a couple of those beautiful eye stunners. But yeah, so. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. It's Friday.
Woo.
Very happy about that. I always think of Friday, the movie, right there. I have had a long week. I'm still recovering, and I'm really excited to be back at the big desk. I would like to thank Mr. Dennison, our producer extraordinaire. Where can people find you online?
You guys can find me on Twitter @ThinkHero, on Instagram Dennis.tzng. You don't think of a Rebecca Black's Friday song?
I sure don't.
So got that in my head.
I sure don't. Alicia Malone, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook @Alicia Malone. I'm going to miss you guys next week.
Oh yeah,
You're
that's
taking
what
off.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, where are we going?
We're going to Atlanta.
Go to Atlanta.
Can't wait to see all of you people that live in Atlanta for our live show. It's going to be a really fun time. Our gatekeeper and lovely host for today, Sinead DeFries. Where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram @Sinead DeFries and at thatsosinead.com.
And I'm Amy Rose with AMC Movie News. You can find me at Amy Rosie on the various social channels. We have a new AMC Indie Spotlight up, a lot of good topics, and yeah, don't forget, like, subscribe, follow. We really appreciate your support. And Atlanta, we'll see you soon. Have a great weekend.
Hey everyone, if you like this video, click that thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It's free and helps you stay up to date with all the latest movie news, as well as our daily AMC Movie Talk show. Also, make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with all of our special promotions, contests, and prize giveaways.